Guys are doing well. Hopefully the live stream would have started already. I think the live stream is actually on now, so evening to all of you FPL managers. Hope you guys are doing well this evening. And of course we have one afternoon or rather evening deadline here, and there's not many news that we can really expect, right? Because Arsenal isn't really a team that unfortunately we've been getting leaks for since game week 1, and that's tough. As far as chat, let's just quickly brush through the questions that were sort of asked before the stream had started. So thank you, ME, for waiting. You would say, who would you advise to sell, Livermore or Lascelles? I'd probably sell Lascelles because it apparently seems like Botman is going to be in training next week. So if I think about it, Livermore feels like more of a long-term stable pick because Dan Burns' injury, is still a reality. Whereas with Botman, the case is really whether he's coming back or whether he's getting surgery. And if the case is, of course, that Botman is likely to come back, then I think Livermore is worth keeping. Prince Izzy's asking about whether, I mean, you've already taken a -4 in your situation. I think your defense is good enough to go in terms of if you play Gabriel, Tsimikas, and Trippier, and probably have Cash, let's say, first bench. And then, yeah, you just play the midfielders that you have and the forwards that you have as well in a 3-5-2. I think that's the best position, given that you've taken a -4. Can't really see any other defenders that are worth a -4, even though I can't guarantee that Tsimikas will start. Frey says he's got Hwang Cunha. That's awesome. Good for you. Very, very good picks for this week. Obviously, Burnley at home. Ragstad loves the 90s. Which one shall I bench out of Trippier, Saliba, Gabriel, Tsimikas, Palmer? I'd probably bench Tsimikas because I'm not sure if he's going to start personally. If you do think Tsimikas will start, though, I'd bench Gabriel at that point in time. Thoughts on Lo Celso on fantasy? I still think it's a bit of a risk because it's not always the case that Lo Celso will play, right? We've seen Lo Celso, for example, start on the bench even though Maddison has been out. And of course, he's played well, for example, in the minutes that he's actually been on the pitch, but I'm still a bit concerned over his minutes overall. And obviously, we know Richarlison's back as well, which should, for example, affect the minutes of the attacking players quite a bit too. You've asked the question, start Palmer or Solanke. I'd probably start Solanke if I'm honest. Would you do Turner to Dubravka and Ait-Nouri to Trippier? I'd probably go Ait-Nouri to Trippier. But actually, I'm not really sure what you mean by that, though, because you're saying bring Son in game week 18. So I'm not sure which move. Are you saying, for example, the Trippier move would block you from Son? If that's the case, then obviously just do Turner to Dubravka. Other questions in chat. Evening to Charlie as well. Hope you're doing well. Other questions. Will Lascelles play? I think he will play. Is he actually amazing this week as a pick to go for? I'm not so sure. Cannon says, hey, Fran, if you would still have Watkins to start. Yeah, I would still have Watkins to start. I would put Colwell on your bench probably. The same situation as myself. I myself am, for example, going for Colwell bench. I'm going to go for Dubravka to start, obviously. And then I'm going to go, obviously I have an attacker here in Darwin that I'm very happy to keep. Phil with an F. Thank you so much, first of all, for the donation. Really appreciate that. Cash to Trippier, Watkins to Semenyo -4. Or play Tsimikas in roll. Personally, I would just take that -4 because still have wild cards, so we'll sell Haaland to Watkins. Oh, okay. Are you planning to wild? Okay, interesting. So you're actually just going to Haaland to Watkins. Okay, I think if your plan is to go for Haaland to Watkins as your Game Week 18 transfer, I just don't really like the upside, though, because this isn't an amazing fixture for Trippier, and I don't really like, for example, going out of Watkins this week. I'd rather, for example, go for someone like maybe an Arsenal defender. If you can just afford, for example, cash to an Arsenal defender like Zinchenko, I would rather make that move as opposed to taking the -4. But if you feel the need to go for the -4, go for it. I just think that this week is not a particularly great Trippier fixture. It's Everton away, so I'd be a bit concerned about taking that -4. And I still think Watkins is incredible in the home fixtures. So yeah, I'd probably avoid the -4 if you could. Other questions in chat. So Dubravka for Turner. I look, honestly, I'll ask the question, and a lot of people will probably have this question. I personally don't think Dubravka from Turner for a -4 is worth it. If you have, let's say, Areola playing for Spurs, he's going to make plenty of saves, in my opinion, anyways, as it stands. And there's no guarantees, really, for Dubravka to get a clean sheet versus Everton. I don't think we should, for example, look at Everton as a very poor attacking team for whatever reason. They've actually been very, very competent on attack. So from that point of view, I would actually say I would take a little bit of caution there. Maybe go for Dubravka next week instead. Evening to you, Gothic Van Life as well. Other questions in chat. Yeah, I think, yeah, Phil, ultimately, just Zinchenko makes more sense than taking a -4, personally. And who knows, on Game Week 18, you can always, when we know, for example, who the Newcastle attacker or forward might be on that week instead, you can go Holland to that person, right? So those kind of things are interesting. At Arsh, please stop spamming the chat. Martinelli to Saka does make sense. I would prefer Cash to Saliba, personally, but I'm going to have to put you on timeout. Please don't spam the chat. Question in chat: who shall I bench between Alvarez, Watkins, and Isaac? I'd probably bench Isaac, actually, in that situation. I would probably bench between Isaac or Watkins. It might actually be the case that I would prefer benching. I think Alvarez is good to go, to be honest, for this fixture. It's not like Aston Villa's defense is astoundingly good, so I still think City can, for example, attack in this fixture. So the question really is between, let's say, Isaac and Watkins. I'd probably just play Isaac, actually, if I think about it. Still play your fixtures in that sort of way. I would probably bench Watkins. Let's see. The gaffer says, should I roll or sell Alvarez for Cunha? I don't think I would sell Alvarez. I would actually play Alvarez. So in that situation, I wouldn't be too worried about keeping Alvarez, for example, in my team. Cash to Colwill. I don't think Colwill has a good fixture, guys. Chelsea versus Man United away is a pretty bad game. So if you, let's say, plan to go Colwill, I would wait for it. And yes, I have seen the GTA trailer. What do you guys think about the GTA 6 trailer? I really liked it. And obviously, I'm absolutely waiting for that game to come out. So, Cyber Tower says, good evening to you, Martinelli or Edouard. Do you mean just in terms of starting and benching? I'd probably start Martinelli. Gordon versus Kulusevski. I'd probably start Kulusevski, but if you're talking about free transfers, I would probably just go for Gordon. Best cash replacement, 4.7 million. That's a tough position. I really don't think Colwell's great. At 4.7. Ooh, that's tough. I mean, you might have to go Colwell, but I don't love it. Could always go Livramento, to be honest. So far away, Ahmed says. Yeah, it's going to take a while for GTA to come out. I mean, the game looks... I mean, we know Rockstar delivers great games, so I'm not really concerned. They're going to cook. Play Robinson and bench Lascelles. I think that makes sense, Yomlao. Or Yomlaw. That makes sense. Archers to Semenyo to cover for Holland Game Week 18. Look, you could do that if you've got 2 free transfers, but to make that move this week, if you've only got 1 free transfer, I don't think makes too much sense. My prediction for Aston Villa versus City, probably something like, maybe City to win, something like 3-2. I'm not quite sure. I'm not expecting City to, for example, keep a clean sheet, if I'm honest, but I'd still, for example, expect for City to win. You're waiting for Bully 2. Hey, Anka, haven't seen you in a while. Hope you're doing well. Obviously, I think that this deadline makes it a bit more suitable for you to go on. Hope you're doing well. Hope everything's been fine. Thoughts on captaining Darwin? I think it's a bit of a risk because I'm not even sure if Darwin's going to start myself and I own Darwin, right? So, personally, I would probably just wait. I mean, I wouldn't wait, sorry. I would just I would just captain either Salah or Son. Honestly, if you don't want to captain Salah, I don't think there's any need to, for example, cover Salah with Darwin. It just makes more sense for me to go Son at that point. Yeah. Thanks, Yomlaw. Okay, thanks, mate. Play Simicast for Lascelles. I'd probably still play Simicast, just punt on him starting. Would you bring in Dubravka if you already have 2 Newcastle defenders? Probably not, if I'm honest. Just because, if you, let's say, think about it, I don't really want to block the triple up. So, if, let's say, Gordon becomes a very good option in Game Week 17, which is obviously one of my options, I would rather just go for that. Yeah, I mean, the GTA trailer absolutely broke the internet as well. The views are wild. Like, I think #1 on trending, but also just, yeah, the viewership is absolutely insane. What's up with Gordon? Gordon seems fine. Apparently, he trained as usual, so I wouldn't be too concerned about Gordon. You've Colwell starting. Would a -4 to replace Cash and bench Colwell be worth it? I don't think it's worth a -4. So personally, I would just play Colwell, in that situation. Honestly, I mean, how much can you really expect from defenders at that sort of price point, for a -4? I really don't think so. For example, yeah, I mean, obviously a defender can get an assist plus a clean sheet like Zinchenko was very close to last week, but that's a very extreme situation. I don't think we have any defender this week that we can guaranteedly say at Cash's price is definitely going to deliver that. So for a -4. Start Palmer, Alvarez. I'd probably start Alvarez personally. Who would you captain if you had no Son or Salah? Probably Haaland or Saka. Maybe I would actually captain Saka instead. You start Diaby over Maguire, who's first sub. The rest of my team, yeah, I think that makes sense. It's not like Maguire has a great fixture. I think Chelsea's attack is very good. All right, quickly just going to have a look at some of the Discord chat questions. So Neeks has asked the question, so Uday's question actually, sorry, I've answered Neek's question on Discord. Uday, I think I would definitely play Gabriel over Lascelles easily. That's the only thing I would comment on. Alfred's question is, should you get in Dubravka? I would go cash for Porro because your defense doesn't look very good this week anyway. So I think there's a bit more upside going to Porro. So I'd probably tempt myself with Porro in that situation. Going back to chat on YouTube, though, Tsimikas, Zinchenko, Porro. I think I still prefer Porro for the short term. Zinchenko, obviously, for this specific fixture, might be a bit better than Porro, but you get my point. I think Porro, just in the reality of, let's say, covering Game Week 18, in being able to actually have a good fixture this week, I think Porro is probably the better transfer when we think medium term, whereas Zinchenko is very short termist. And then Tsimikas, I think I'm a bit concerned about Tsimikas just because I'm not sure if he starts this specific fixture. So I wouldn't necessarily advise him as a transfer, even though I think he's obviously, if we knew, for example, Tsimikas would start 100%, then I would actually recommend Tsimikas, but it's hard to do so. Would I start Taylor over Cash? Yeah, I would start Taylor over Cash. Bench one, Guehi, Tsimikas, Diaby. I'd probably bench Diaby in that situation. Hwang and Dubravka in for Areola and Adingra. Yeah, I think those are good moves. I wouldn't take it for a hit though. I'd probably prioritize the Hwang move first if you had to pick one of the two. Who should I start, Sterling or Gordon? I'd probably start Sterling. Cash to Gabriel, and is Dubravka priority transfer? I don't think it's a priority transfer, guys. It's Everton away, as I said. That's a pretty tough game. We don't need to, for example, overhype how good that fixture is. So in that situation, I would just say, if you, for example, have to take a hit, right, from Turner to Dubravka, doesn't really make sense to me to do so. So I would actually just wait for next week. Start Darwin or Watkins. I'd probably, I mean, actually, I'm not really sure if Darwin's going to start. I think Watkins is the safe play. Darwin's is the high upside play. Even though, of course, last week, look at Watkins playing 90 minutes again. I'd probably go Watkins, honestly. I'd be a bit more assured of his minutes, and for that reason, I'd probably just start Watkins anyways. If there was a way I could actually start both in your team structure, I'd probably do it. Bench one between, I mean, I would just bench Lascelles easily. Uday. It's a very obvious answer, in my opinion. I mean, just compare, for example, Everton to Luton as a defensive opponent, right? It's very, very obvious. Should I start Taylor or Porro? I'd start Porro 100%. Bench two out of Gabriel, Saliba, Lascelles, Palmer, Watkins. Honestly, guys, if you guys, for example, have Lascelles and he's one of your bench options, for example, I would definitely pick an Arsenal defender always over Lascelles this week. So that would be my default answer to most of those questions. Chat is absolutely buzzing though, so thank you guys for being around. If you guys could like and subscribe, that would be absolutely lovely. Really appreciate the support. Start Darwin or Palmer. I'd probably still start Darwin just to punt because it's a pretty average fixture for Palmer anyways, and it's an amazing fixture for Darwin. And if you can get him starting, that would be great. Turner to Dubravka for a free transfer makes a lot of sense. Yeah, road to 30k. I actually forgot to say that, but we did actually hit 20,000 subscribers today, so thank you guys so much for the support. The year-end goal was 20,000. We definitely did make it ahead of schedule. So thank you guys all so much. Hopefully we can actually hit 21k before the end of the year instead now. Cash to whom? It depends if you have money. I think Reece James is a good option. Arsenal defender like Zinchenko is a good option from cash. Porro is a very good option as well. Those are the sort of picks that I would suggest. Thank you so much, Anka. And also, yeah, thank you so much to just in general the members of the channel for financially supporting me. Like it makes the YouTube experience quite helpful from a month-to-month basis. So really thank you all as well, and everyone who's been watching the videos and commenting and liking. That's been really, really appreciated. Sorry. Congrats on 30k, well 20k, but Porro a good pick for long term. Absolutely. I would say more medium term, right? Because if you look at the Spurs fixtures, I mean, they're actually really good, aren't they? So if you've got West Ham, you can play Porro, you can play him versus Nottingham Forest. You can play him versus Everton at home on 18, obviously, and then he's got Bournemouth at home at 20. So just in general, I think in the short term, you've got 5 out of 7 fixtures that I would easily want to play, for example, Porro in, even the Newcastle game potentially. So in that context, I think Porro makes a lot of sense. Cash or Taylor, I'd definitely play Taylor. Cash is probably someone that I would put at the absolute back of my bench this week, guys. So just think it's pretty rare, for example, for an attacking fullback to expect too much from City, and it's just a tough situation. Would you start Doku or Edouard? I'd probably start Edouard, actually. I think I've got more guarantees of his minutes this week than Doku. Sell a Dingler to Palmer for a -4. I don't think that makes sense. For the person asking the question about Fernandes and Ward-Prowse to Hee-Chan and Saka for -4, you know what? I actually like those moves. That makes a lot of sense. Khalid, thank you so much for joining as a member of the channel. Welcome to President. And once again, thank you so much for joining. Feel free to obviously have a look at one of the private videos that I've uploaded. And if you want to have, for example, the ability to chat to me one-on-one on Discord or on any social media platform, just feel free to drop me a message or a comment on videos with, for example, your details, or just message me if you're already on those platforms. Ben C, hope you're doing well. Who do I bench with Mbumo, Salson, Bowen, and Huang? Abame44 asks. I'd probably bench Bowen. It's an away fixture. Huang has a much better fixture. And I prefer Mbumo to Bowen, generally speaking. I'm doing good, Ben. Hope you're doing well, too. First sub, Wisa or Taylor? Definitely. I'd probably pick Wisa first sub, to be honest. Hey, Fran, thoughts on Cunha in for Watkins for the next 2 game weeks? I think it's not too bad, actually, as a move. The question I would probably ask you is, is the team value worth it? Secondly, and are you in a luxury position, basically, is the question that I'd like to ask. Because obviously, I would say Watkins on Game Week 18, if you're selling him this week, is probably someone who you need to sort of must transfer back in on Game Week 18. So the question, of course, is how do you plan to get Watkins back in Game Week 18? And if it's totally fine, then that's okay. In terms of your question about defenders, though, Yusuf, what do you mean, though? Because I'm not really sure what your team structure is right now. So you've got the same sort of core as me, but you need 1.9 million in the bank. How much do you have in the bank right now, though? I guess is the question. Is Dubravka worth a -4? I don't think so. Keep Bruno. I'd probably keep Bruno, honestly, this week, unless you can easily move to Saka or Son without a hit. If you had one free transfer, would you use it to buy Gordon or Porro? I would definitely go for Porro. He's got a home fixture here. Gordon's fixture is pretty tough. So yeah, that coupled with the fact that, of course, he also had a slight, for example, hip issue, I suppose, coming from the previous fixture, might be the case that he gets subbed off a little bit earlier than usual. I'm not quite sure. Sarita says, how are you weeks ago? You've got one free transfer used for Simicast. I just don't like the -4 for Dubravka, personally. I know Areola has been very frustrating, and he's been frustrating for me as well, but I personally wouldn't do it for a hit. Grealish on 5th yellow, so aren't Doku's minutes secured? I think so. But the issue is that I still think that they can call upon, for example, like they could, in theory, play Rico Lewis at times, right? So when you play Rico Lewis, put him into the midfield, and he can play, for example, in the pockets, then you can actually move Foden out wide and take off those kind of Doku minutes. But obviously, I think, yeah, Doku's minutes are secure. It's just a pretty tough fixture as well. You're a City fan. We've been leaking goals like crazy. No, I get that. I get that idea. And that's why I think Watkins makes sense to keep it. If you're in the position to keep Watkins, I'd probably do it, because what I would say is, of course, if you're not sure Darwin would start versus Sheffield United, if you're not sure about Isaac's minutes for the last 2 fixtures, and those fixtures aren't very, very good anyways for Newcastle, in that context, I don't think taking Watkins out makes any sense. Unless, for example, you're going to Solanke and you get a huge upgrade for another move or something like that. Gothic Van Life, do you think the double in Game Week 20 is a no-go now? I think Ben Krellin basically said that we should wait until the end of this week before making a judgment on that. I think he basically said that this week is the last week really where we can expect for that to happen. So in that context, I would probably say wait for the end of this week. And if by the end of this week, let's say before the Saturday deadline, we don't get any news about double Game Week 20, then I would say it's probably close to being a no-go. Although I'll keep you updated, of course, by just following, for example, what Planet FPL James and Ben Krellin think about the double game week. Palmer or Gordon? I would still probably go Gordon, honestly. I feel like I did make a mistake personally by going from Gordon to Palmer a while back, even though, of course, I think the Palmer injury was super unlucky, given the fact that Chelsea actually had a really good game versus Brighton and ultimately ended up getting a penalty, which was super frustrating, but that's the landscape. So Rekik, do I sound like Harry to you? I probably wouldn't go Diaby to Odegaard, honestly. I don't think I'd want to spend that much money on Odegaard right now, even though I think he's a pretty good pick. Personally, I prefer Saka and Son in terms of, being able to spend that sort of money in that sort of position in the midfield, and I'd rather spend my funds elsewhere. Start Porro Lascelles. Definitely Porro, guys. I think Lascelles is very easy to bench. I know a lot of people are getting hyped up around Dubravka. He's obviously an upgrade versus Areola, right? But you can't say, for example, that suddenly Lascelles becomes an essential option. This is not a good fixture. Everton away is a tough fixture. Let's get that clear. And then obviously we can go back to sort of contextualizing, right? Because, for example, Porro is super clear, in my opinion, of Lascelles. Now, Lascelles might get a clean sheet, but I think that would be very, very hard fought for a clean sheet. So that's one thing I would say. As I said, though, probably wouldn't go Diaby to Odegaard, Rekik. Bench Gordon or Alvarez. I'd bench Gordon easily in that situation. Start Watkins or Solanke. I'd probably start Solanke, actually. Just think it's a slightly better game. Is Hwang Chan a bad option due to... I think Hwang Chan is actually... He's not a bad option, but think about it like this, right? If you have Mbumo, if you have Son, and you also have Salah, you've got 3 players who are going to leave, and then Hwang would add another one. I think the biggest concern with Hwang is if he gets 5 yellow cards, because that would mean that he would get suspended. Well, you're... Okay, fine, Anka. I think... Fair enough, if your alternative is Maguire, I'd probably still start... I'd start Lascelles in that instance then. Just because... I don't have too much confidence in United, although they somehow seem to be, for example, a Chelsea bogey team. But still, I'd probably pick Lascelles in that situation. That is a pretty, I wouldn't say a desperate situation, but it's just probably one of those instances where you're weak. Your team, for example, is a bit weaker this week. Start Lascelles or Mitchell. Yeah, I'd start Mitchell in that instance. I do think, for example, one thing to say as well is, let's say if we compared Lascelles to Shaw or compared Lascelles to Livramento, I'd still prefer, for example, options like Shaw, but he's quite expensive. I think a little bit too expensive. But I'd prefer, for example, Livramento because access to bonus points as a fullback and then also just more attacking returns, right? So that's obviously the context that needs to be added as well. And obviously Maguire, it's not like he's, for example, that much more of a huge set piece threat compared to Lascelles. So I think that's more of a like for like comparison. If it suddenly was, for example, Shaw versus Lascelles, I would easily pick Shaw just for that sort of context. Fran de Man, appreciate that. Start Kudus or Mbumo. I'd probably start Mbumo. What's good, Fran? You just found a hole in the bedroom. Yo, congrats, man. That's huge. Well done. To you and your partner, obviously, and congratulations. I'm not sure why I'm saying well done, but congrats. Start Kudus or Mbumo. Yeah, answer that question already. Adeng would be benched. I think it's possible, but they're pretty light on players right now. Maybe he could be benched, but I still think, for example, you should probably look towards your bench instead. Bench Palmer, Alvarez, or Gordon. I'd probably bench Gordon in that situation. It would be between Gordon or Palmer for me. Does Romero start for Spurs? Yeah, I think so. I mean, his suspension's over, so there's no reason for him to not start, right? Who would you bench out of Gabriel, Saliba, and Palmer? I'd actually bench Palmer in that instance. Lascelles versus Palmer versus Anderson. I'd probably actually bench Lascelles once again. Is Son to Odegaard a good move? No, not at all. I think Son's amazing. Why would you want to go to Odegaard? Excuse me, sorry. You've got Bowen, Palmer, and Gordon, Khalid says. Which one to bench? Honestly, I might consider benching... It's either... For me, it's between Bowen or Gordon. And part of that, obviously, is because I really like my penalty takers at times. But all of them are playing away from home. And in that context, I just think that Bowen probably... I'd probably bench Bowen, honestly. If you have confidence in, for example, Gordon's form and the fact that you think he'll play, then I'd probably just pick Gordon over Bowen. But I think it's between Gordon or Bowen. I would definitely start Palmer. You've got no choice, Sarita. What does that mean? You always have a choice. What do you think about Fulham's Robinson? I think Robinson's been doing incredible lately. And in fact, for Gameweek 18, if we're maybe in need of a defender, Robinson very well might be that pick. Because my concern with Castagne and why I've removed him from the cheat sheet is obviously Kenny Tete has come into the team and he's taken minutes away. Martin, so thank you so much for the donation as well. Who would you start, Tsimikas or Lascelles? Personally, I would start Tsimikas. Just because, as I said, I think I can't guarantee you that Tsimikas will start. But if you look at me, I think I have a very similar situation as your team, right? I've got Tsimikas starting and I have Colwell on the bench. I'm pretty sure Colwell will play, just like I'm pretty sure Lascelles will play. But the concern, obviously, is that I think Tsimikas obviously has really high upside, and it is versus Sheffield United. So I would take that risk, go for the sort of higher upside player if he starts, which is Tsimikas in that instance, and I would just play Tsimikas over Lascelles. therefore benching Lascelles. Thank you, KE, as well, for the shout out there. Hwang to Diaby. What do you mean? Like, are you going from Hwang to Diaby, or are you going from Diaby to Hwang? Thoughts on starting Turner on the punt that he starts? I mean, you could always do that. It's not like it's really going to affect you. Obviously, there could be some pretty drastic situations, like if, let's say, Lakodimos gets injured, Turner might actually come in for a few minutes. Who knows? That could be, for example, really beneficial. Look at someone like Bentley, for example. But at the same time, you could be someone like Dubravka, where you get basically no points. Who should I start, Solanke or Edouard? I'd probably start Solanke. You have no choice. Your defender, Tsimikas, Gabriel, and Dalot. Yep, fair enough. I think you play Tsimikas, Gabriel, and Dalot. I think that's fair, how you've done it. Who should I start between Tsimikas, Lascelles, or Taylor? I'd probably start Tsimikas, and then I would actually probably still play Taylor over Lascelles, potentially. Yusuf says he's got 1.9 right now, but 1.5 is that needed. Okay, I see. So the question is, do I get Porro in for Mitchell and then downgrade? Yeah, I think downgrading Boom on Gameweek 18 makes a lot of sense. In fact, actually, that's one of my transfer plans. And I'll talk about that, obviously, in my Gameweek 16 transfer plans video. So yeah, I agree with you completely there. I would go for Porro, go for the short-term upside and the medium-term upside of Porro, and then make some moves around in Boom on Gameweek 18 as well. By the way, thank you guys for being in chat as well. Really appreciate the support. We did hit 20,000 subscribers, so that's amazing. But of course, if you're not subscribed, do feel free to subscribe, and then obviously like and keep asking questions as you see fit. Start Guehi or Adingra. I'd probably start Guehi. I feel like there's just more of a confirmation for Guehi to play. It's actually a pretty good fixture, ultimately. Harley, I hope you're doing well. Who would you start out of Guehi, Lascelles, and Pinnock? I'd probably start Guehi. What's my overall points? 894 overall points. Kulusevski or Tsimikas? I'd start Kulusevski 100% if that's your question between starting the two players. Gibbs White and Tsimikas to Porro and Hwang for -4. I don't think the move towards Hwang makes sense, personally. I would go Tsimikas to Porro, but yeah, I would do that one move. Just because I can't confirm that Tsimikas will start, right? But I can definitely confirm that Porro will start unless he has an undisclosed injury. So in that context, I'd probably prefer the Porro move. And I also think, ultimately Morgan Gibbs White has an okay fixture. And as I said, Hwang has some risks attached to him. Do you think Hwang in to play over? Yeah, I think Hwang... I don't think Hwang in makes too much sense, Ben, to be honest. I'd rather, for example, just keep Palmer. Just because, as I said, if you own, for example, 3 of the AFCON/Asian Cup players, there's a lot of risk to Hwang, even though Hwang is better, in theory, than Palmer this week as a pick. Awesome, Kenan. 1 point. I hope to claw that 1 point back. Last week was pretty bad for me, actually, in terms of my transfer decisions. If I rolled last week, I think I would have been 9 points up. If I actually made my alternative move, I would have been 7 points up. So, pretty tough week overall to take. Notorious, hope you're doing well. Nice to see you around again. You got Trippier, Tsimikas, Saliba, and Porro in defense. I would probably bench Tsimikas in your situation. I think I've got guarantees from Trippier, guarantees from Saliba, guarantees from Porro. I would take those guarantees, and even though Tsimikas, he might obviously start, we can't confirm that. And all the other picks have a relatively good fixture, considering the quality of player they are. For example, I don't think Newcastle versus Everton is a very good game for clean sheets, but obviously, as we know, Trippier, incredible attacking upside. Should I buy Hwang for Diaby? I think that makes sense, but obviously, take into account the fact that, take into account the fact that Hwang has some risks, such as Asian Cup and also 4 yellow cards. If you have 1 free transfer and it's a bit of a luxury for you to go from Hwang, then that makes sense. Rank for captaincy: Saka, Son, Salah. I think Salah, Son, Saka is the order I would do it. Let's do a captaincy poll, actually. I just think that would actually be quite helpful, just to see where people are at. Captaincy for Gameweek 18, Salah. I'm going to rank them in the order that I think that I see the captaincies in, but obviously feel free to answer with your question. I mean, with your captaincy pick. Hi, Fran. Who would you put on first sub, Archer or Soufal? I would definitely put Soufal, I think. Sorry, I would put Archer first sub. The Black Grealish. We appreciate you and all the work you do. Well, first of all, congratulations to yourself, and thank you, of course, for supporting the channel yourself. You don't think Arsenal keeps a clean sheet here? I mean, I get that, right? But I think sometimes we just have to take a little bit more of an analytical approach sometimes. I think you have to say that Luton's a pretty weak team, even on attack, and then Arsenal's also a very, very, very good defending team, maybe actually the best defensive team in the world. And then on top of that, I always talk about home and away. Somehow Arsenal are one of the few, for example, oddities in the Premier League where they actually keep a lot of clean sheets away from home, even though actually expected goals conceded at home is a lot better than away. So that's one thing to add into it. But no, I think personally you just have to look into it. Arsenal still ultimately have a much better defensive fixture than other people. So if your feeling, for example, is that Arsenal will lose their clean sheet, I think you've got to use that same logic for all the other teams and say that they've got much worse fixtures. Arsenal best defensive team. I mean, what makes you question that, Jack? Lucas says it's just, yeah, I think the Jurgen Klopp point makes sense. That's why I'm concerned about Tsimikas benching, but I still think that he's got a lot of attacking upside. So I wouldn't risk it for myself because I can't guarantee that he's going to be benched and I can't guarantee that he's going to start. And we're going to reach the deadline, without that information. Martinelli or Bowen? I'll definitely play Martinelli over Bowen, but as a transfer in, I probably wouldn't transfer either of them. Saka in for a -4. I think the question is, who are you taking out? Jack is definitely a Spurs fan. Look, I mean, I would have said that last season City were the best defensive team in the world, right? But this season we've seen a clear improvement in Arsenal. So I think it's okay to make that leap. It's not like Arsenal were a bad defensive team last season and that it's a complete aberration of things. We've seen that the City team actually looks worse on defense, if anything. And ultimately, Newcastle and Arsenal are totally up there, and Arsenal a little bit up higher, I would say. We thinking Nunez starts. I think he could be rested. I think he can be rested in Europa League 100%. They've already won their group. I agree with you. I think that the thing about Nunez too is that he can come off the bench and probably still play 30, 40 minutes. So I would still take that chance to play Nunez. Bowen, Palmer, or. So who's the last option? Or are you saying Bowen or Palmer? I would probably play Palmer. Thanks, Cad, for joining the stream. Guehi or Wan-Bissaka? I'd probably start Guehi. I can't even be sure that Wan-Bissaka will start. Because it's still possible, even though we've seen Luke Shaw centre back as of late, I think we could easily see Luke Shaw slot back into left back if, let's say, Man United play a little bit more of an attacking game. Is it better to play... I would play 2 Arsenal defence. Look, the question you should always ask, Uday, is not, should I play 1 or 2 or 3? It's who has the good fixtures. If the Arsenal players have good fixtures, play all of them. It's not about covering or hedging and things like that. Personally, I think it always makes sense to just play the picks with the best sort of prospects in terms of points, right? If we think that Arsenal have a better defensive fixture than Newcastle, I would always play that Arsenal double up, comfortably over Newcastle if the quality of opponent is that different. And Everton and Luton are definitely huge differences in opponents. Gordon or Alvarez? I'd probably play I'd actually play Alvarez, sorry. Is James a good or bad risk? I mean, I think... honestly, a bit of both, right? Let's be honest. He still has the propensity to get injured all the time, but I think he's a good risk in the sense that he's a good pick generally for this run of games for Chelsea. Chris Chan says he's doing triple Newcastle defense. I don't think that's crazy. I just like I like leaving room for Gordon, or I like leaving room for one of the forwards at one point in time. Do I think Doku's a good pickup? I mean, yes, but also keep in mind, of course, there's blank Gameweek 18, and sometimes, of course, as you can see, Doku can be an early substitution. Should I buy Porro or James? I personally think Porro is a little bit safer in the sense that he's got a lot of attacking upside himself. But I think also James is someone where he still might have his minutes managed. And ultimately, I don't think the Chelsea team is that elite of a defense between, let's say, themselves and Spurs, where I would say there's a huge gap, for example. So I would probably just pick Porro, given that Porro actually has a good fixture this week, whereas James actually does not have a good fixture this week. I think Man United away is a pretty tough fixture. What do you mean by that, Dawn? I'm not sure what that means. The older won't is always in charge. I'm so confused. I'm so lost. Apparently the last time James played 3 games in a row was in 2020. Okay. I don't know if that's crazy, but that sounds like a crazy stat. But also believable, because I don't think I've seen James enough in football. Who should I have instead of Mbumo? And I have 6.6 million left. I mean, are you replacing Mbumo? I don't think it makes sense to replace Mbumo. But if you're saying someone who's not Mbumo, I'd probably just look for someone between Gordon, Palmer, and Hwang and make a decision between those 3. Keep in mind, Hwang, in my opinion, is high risk, high reward. The risk being yellow cards and Asian Cup. Whereas, obviously, I think Palmer and Gordon both have some pretty average fixtures, but ultimately, Palmer has really good fixtures in the medium term. Gordon, I would say, obviously, starting from Game Week 17 is very good. Is Hwang a good captaincy choice? No, guys. I mean, I think Salah and Son are way, way clear. Seems like everyone is I would look 6% Holland, 5% Son. I think Son is clear of Saka and Holland, but that's my opinion. I'm surprised it's that leaning towards Salah, but that's fair enough. Start Watkins or Alvarez. I would start Alvarez. Guehi or Porro. I'd probably start Porro 100%. Should I keep Adingra for his Brentford fixture? Probably yes. You'd like to hear your opinion. Football 2000. Who to bench? I think I would just bench Adingra in that situation, and I would actually just play Watkins actually, and I would bench Adingra and Palmer. Start Livramento or Tsimikas. I'd probably start. I'd start Tsimikas. I would say at the end. Honestly, I honestly don't think Sheffield United could have a serious new manager bounce. They're still, at the end of the day, a pretty awful football team. Rustem, Happy New Year to you as well. Going for Tete for a differential. Fair enough. I do think Robinson's a little bit more nailed, though, just because, for example, Castagna is a pretty competent replacement. Johnstone or Areola. If you're just talking about playing this week, I would actually just go with Johnstone. Foden or Gordon to start? Definitely Foden for me. Hey, Fran, thoughts? Dubravka, Turner, Gabriel, Tsimikas. You've already taken a -4 though. I wouldn't take any more hits. I would just play the players that you have. I think I already recommended you who to play as well. It's just going to be 3-5-2 for you. Ben C. I think yeah. If you're wild card in Gameweek 19, I think Hwang makes a lot of sense. That makes sense, Ben. Ben Taylor though says, "Hi Thran, what's your thoughts on moving Guehi to Gabriel?" I think that makes sense as well. Cash or Baptiste first? I would tough question. I mean, I'd probably go Baptiste just because. Honestly, it's not a good fixture for Cash, right? So it might be the case that Cash is actually going to struggle for points. Like, he could go into the negatives, right? There could be that situation. He-Chan or Porro? For me, I think Porro, just for safety reasons. Also, I'm going to have to mute you just because you're spamming in chat a bit too much. Will Klopp rest Salah against Sheffield? I think there's a pretty low chance of that, but I think it's possible. I just think that if you think about it, the best opportunity to rest Salah would be on the Europa League fixture. And given that opportunity is still there for Liverpool, I think it makes sense to play Salah anyways. Diaby to Saka for a -4. Yeah, I think that makes sense actually, because I think Saka has a great game here, and ultimately Diaby has a pretty poor one. So for that -4 actually makes sense to me, because Saka in general is a pick that you can actually keep long term. So hopefully, obviously beyond this game week as well, it's going to have good dividends for you. Is Martinelli a good option? Personally, I don't think so. I think he's a good. He's an above average option, but I still think we can do better with our funds. So I would actually cautiously say no right now with Martinelli. Start Gordon or Guehi? I'd still probably start Gordon actually in that situation. Who to start, Hwang or Gordon? I would definitely start Hwang easily. I mean, this is Hwang's best fixture basically. So if you don't start Hwang on this game, then there's no reason to own Hwang at all. You're tempted to go differential with Son. I think that makes a lot of sense, Canan. I think Son's fantastic, actually. Nicolo says, 5.6 for a defender. Gabriel Zinchenko. I think I would go Zinchenko for the attacking upside. Even though I know there's a slight risk that Gabriel will play more minutes, I just think that Zinchenko is nice for the attacking upside. And also, we know that Tomiyasu might be injured as well, so that's really huge. Transfer in Gordon. Gordon is fit. He was in training. Start Lascelles or Mitchell or Taylor. I'd probably start. I'd start Mitchell in that situation. You'd go Porro for a 5.6 million defender. Yeah, I agree with that as well. Although I think I was just answering that person's suggestion that person might have Porro already. Start Darwin or 2 Arsenal defense. I think I would start 2 Arsenal defense, honestly. If you think that Darwin will be benched. If you don't think Darwin will be benched, then obviously just play Darwin over one of your Arsenal defenders. -4 for Dubravka. I don't think it makes sense. Personally, I wouldn't do it. I only did it because I have a free transfer. Start Gordon or Darwin. I would probably tempt myself with Darwin, honestly. Best premium defender. I mean, Trent right now, he still has a good run of fixtures, right? Start Gordon or Palmer this week, boss. For me, Palmer. Which one would you change? Which one would you bench? Palmer, Pinnock, or Mitchell? I'd probably bench Pinnock and play Mitchell and Palmer. So Rita says, if you have 3-5-2, you have to put Diaby. I think you can just play Diaby. I mean, he's still at home. He's probably going to start this game. I can't see him being benched 2 fixtures in a row. Is Foden a good option for Diaby? I think he absolutely is. Someone needs a cheap defender, something like Maguire. I mean, I think if you need an Everton one, then just go Branthwaite, right? Watkins out for Saka in for a -4. Ooh, I mean, who are the other moves, right? Because obviously Watkins out, Saka in. You've got midfielder and forwards there, so let me know who's going out, who's going in as well. You think Crystal Palace are going to get a clean sheet against Bournemouth? Not necessarily, no. But I don't think, for example, Newcastle are going to keep a clean sheet versus Everton. The only reason why I've gone Dubravka is because I think, for example, Newcastle still have a better chance. So we're always playing for chances, right? We can't always guarantee clean sheets. If anything, I think the chances and the odds, for example, for both Newcastle and Crystal Palace to get clean sheets are below 50%. But even within that, you always take the team with higher odds, in my opinion. So in that instance, obviously, that's why I've gone for Dubravka over Areola, to play this week. And in the context of people asking the question, Guehi versus Lascelles, I would always answer Guehi in that situation. What do you think of Badiashile? I think Badiashile looked incredible in the previous game. So, yeah, I think if you want to go Badiashile, go for it. But the thing is, Man United away is a pretty bad game. So, I wouldn't think about going Badiashile this week. Steele or Neto? Why do you have these two keepers? Is this a draft question? Honestly, probably Neto, just because I think Brentford attack is much better than Crystal Palace. Didn't do anything for this week for the first time this season. I banked the transfer. That's fair enough, Nuclear. And your team makes sense, obviously, if you've got Hwang, nothing to do. Start Pinnock or Dallo? I'd probably still start Dallo. Start one, Mitchell or Guehi? I mean, if you own both of them, I'd probably start Mitchell. Bench one of Gabriel, Saliba, Lascelles, Tsimikas, or Darwin? I'd probably bench Lascelles. What do you think of starting Palmer or two Arsenal defense? I'd probably still start double Arsenal defense over Palmer. Bench Gordon or Palmer? I'd bench Gordon. Solanke or Gordon? I'd bench Gordon. So I would play Solanke, obviously, in that instance. Just going to quickly check, guys, if we have some leaks right now. Could be quite helpful, potentially, if we have a leak. But I'm not really, for example, believing that we actually have leaks. Doesn't really seem like we have leaks at all. Yeah, I can't really see it, guys. Can't really see it myself. Don't think we have leaks, and unfortunately this is the reality of the season. We don't have any Arsenal leaks at all, and that's okay. Sometimes you just have to, for example, take that L. All right, quickly going back to chat. Watkins or Mitchell? I would probably play Watkins. Start Dallo or Pinnock? I'd start Dallo. Start Solanke or Palmer? Solanke. Palmer or Darwin? I would take the punt on Darwin in that instance. That's a bit different. Why would you bench Lascelles if you brought Dubravka? I already explained it, Mr. Feather. You don't bring people in FPL just because you're 100% or 0% sure about something. You pick something because there's, for example, if you look at, for example, like gambling odds, for example, you would see that Newcastle have a better clean sheet percentage than West Ham. That's basically my point. I don't think Areola has any chance of keeping a clean sheet versus Spurs, whereas I think at least Newcastle have a decent chance. The question that I'm being asked is Guehi or Lascelles, right? I'm not picking between Johnson as my keeper versus Dubravka. I don't have that situation. So I'm obviously going to always answer what I think is going to get the best points back for someone who's asking the question. So why would I answer Lascelles bench when someone's asking me whether they should play Guehi? For the exact reason that I explained. I think Crystal Palace have really good clean sheet odds compared to Newcastle. And okay, you're asking about other people. That's a bit different then, and that's in that case. But still, I would answer the same thing. For example, if I had Lascelles in my team, I would still play Guehi, for example, over Lascelles. And that's totally fine with me. Just because I own one keeper doesn't mean that I always have to, for example, some people are asking, whether they should play double Arsenal defense. I think they absolutely should. Otherwise, why own double Arsenal defense when they're playing a good opponent like Luton Town? However, obviously, if you own double Newcastle defense and you actually have, for example, 3 other defenders that are better than, let's say, Lascelles, I think that's totally fine. And you can still play Dubravka. That's okay. Palmer or Alvarez to start? I would still go with Alvarez in that situation. So you'd maybe find a way to start Anderson. I think so. Anderson ultimately has a good home game. Doku or Kulusevski? I would probably go... Honestly, I don't love Kulusevski. I think we're being a little bit reactionist to the fact that he scored 1 goal and 1 assist versus Man City. Those were very, very low effort chances. If you look at Kulusevski's header goal, that was a complete fluke. He didn't even mean to do it. Doesn't even hit him in the right way in the head, but it just landed perfectly for him. I would go for Doku, but Doku, for me, also has a huge risk because of blank game week 18. So I would actually look for an alternative beyond the two of them. Saleh says, and thank you so much for the donation, Saleh. Which two would you start from? Wilson, Darwin, and Solanke. Or so Willian, you said. Okay, Darwin and Solanke. I would still go with Darwin and Solanke. I'm not sure why Willian was benched versus Liverpool, but I think obviously that means he's probably going to start this midweek game. Maybe actually I would go with. I think the safest play is to go Willian and Solanke in your situation. But if I wanted a bit of upside, honestly, I would probably go Willian and Darwin. And then maybe bench Solanke. So many good fixtures in your team this game week. That makes sense, Harley. I think a lot of people have very similar quality level of fixtures, right? For example, I think Newcastle and Crystal Palace have pretty similar clean sheet odds. I think it's favored towards Crystal Palace, which is why, for example, I would actually prefer Livramento over Guehi, but I would prefer Guehi over Lascelles, right? For the fullback sort of impacts and the attacking impacts and things like that. Can Gordon play versus everyone because he's a former Everton player? Yeah, Gordon can play versus Everton. Gordon is actually an official Newcastle player, so of course he can play versus Everton. What's my go-to 2 a.m. McDonald's meal? I'm not a huge fan of 2 a.m. McDonald's, but honestly, I quite just like, for example, chicken tenders or whatever. But that's not even, for example, a McDonald's special. I do love my McFlurries, though. Who's got higher chances of keeping a clean sheet and more saves, Onana or Dubravka? I would probably pick, I mean, the combination of two, I would probably pick Onana, actually, in that instance. Do I think I'm going to do free hit 18? Actually, no. I don't think I'm going to do free hit 18 anymore. Just because we haven't got the news confirmed. Obviously, if we get the news confirmed by the end of this week, I might consider it. But right now, obviously, as you can see, my team, as it stands, it's not like I'm really geared towards free hit 18. So probably not. Solanke or Anderson, I'd probably still start Solanke. Rodriguez or Adingra? Wait, which Rodriguez is this? What do you mean? Is this Rodri you're talking about? Or is there Rodriguez that I'm not thinking about? Probably Adingra in that situation. Zinchenko in for Guehi -4. I don't think it's worth a -4. Flecken or Sanchez? I think I might go Sanchez there. Oh, J. Rodriguez. Okay, because J. Rodriguez is spelled with an S, right? J. Rodriguez. I mean, you've got J. Rodriguez, Wolves away. I mean, I might go J. Rodriguez because it might be the case that Adingra could get benched. Doku not starting according to FPL main road. Oh, wow. Has that just come about? Let me just quickly double check that, guys. Are we sure about that? Wow. Apparently Doku has an injury. I think Doku might have an injury, guys. Doku might be injured. Yeah, I mean, he was taken off very, very early in the Aston Villa game. So it's very possible that he might have a knock. Very, very possible. By the way, thank you guys for joining the stream. If you guys could like and subscribe, that would be absolutely lovely. And I really appreciate you guys for being in the chat. But yeah, apparently two city leakers that I've seen already have said that Doku is out. So that is very, very significant. Okay. Darwin or Palmer? I would probably punt on Darwin. Start Guehi or Pinnock? I'd probably go Guehi. Zaniolo was awful. I'd be shocked if Diaby doesn't start. I think Diaby will start as well. Doku replacement? First, well, you can't even go Mbumo, right? Yeah. Oof. Doku replacement at 6.6 or 7.0. I guess you could always punt on Hwang. I would love to go Foden, but you can't go Foden, can you? So it's quite a tough situation. You could always go Kudus or Sterling as well. Although I think Sterling might be 7.1, so that kind of blocks Sterling. You might just want to go Palmer and save some money. I think Palmer and save some money makes sense to me. Dubravka in or roll? I think Dubravka in makes sense if it's not a hit for you. Oscar Bob. Nah, I wouldn't do Oscar Bob for Doku. You think the recent Burnley wins are a resurgence for the team? I mean, what do you mean? I don't think, for example, like we're not going to take away anything from the fact that they just I mean, what recent Burnley wins? They literally have one win, don't they? Just one win versus Sheffield United. There's no recent wins in terms of the plural. Bowen or Martinelli? I would easily pick Martinelli, but I'll have to put you in timeout. Yep, two city leakers have said Doku apparently out for the game. I'm going to put that in chat and then pin that, because obviously that's the big leak that we've actually gotten so far, which obviously is quite important for people to actually know. It might be Rico Lewis. Rico Lewis might come in and play. Obviously, Foden is good. Alvarez looks good to go as well. Grealish, guys, don't go Grealish. Grealish is suspended. Grealish is suspended. Can't go Grealish. He's suspended. Start Darwin or Alvarez. I'd probably go Alvarez because I'm not sure if Darwin starts, but it really depends. Like, if you believe Darwin will start, then go Darwin over Alvarez. The question, of course, is what you believe. Do you think getting a dinger out for Hwang was a good move? I think it makes sense because Hwang has a lot of upside versus Burnley. You hope Alvarez... Yeah, I mean, Alvarez will definitely play this game if Doku's out. As long as Alvarez doesn't have an injury. Palmer or Guecki, who to start? I would probably go... I think I'd go Palmer actually there. Just punt with an attacker. Replacements for Mitchell and Taylor next game week. I'd probably keep Taylor because, I mean, it's not like, for example, anyone at Taylor's price point is amazing, right? So I would probably just keep Taylor, excuse me. And then actually I would probably just replace the other pick with something like a Chelsea defender, for example, or even an Aston Villa defender, just so you can keep that defender until game week 18. Stone starts. Oh, that's massive. Apparently Tony says thanks for... Okay. Okay, two city leakers are at war on Twitter, and it's pretty funny. That is pretty funny. I'm not even gonna lie. I wish I could show it to you guys. Well, I could actually, but maybe I won't expose them. It's just funny though. Do I think Luton will avoid relegation? Unfortunately not, but obviously I wouldn't mind if Luton, prevented relegation, if they could. Who should I start, Bowen or Ferguson? I'd probably start Ferguson actually. Hwang in for Gordon because it says no. Gordon is fit, guys. Gordon is fit. Gordon apparently was in training. I don't know if Gordon will start, but Gordon was in training today, so I think that it's probably quite likely that Gordon will play. Start Solanke or Palmer? I would start Solanke in that instance. You have both. Should I start White or Porro? Ooh, I think because Tomiyasu might be injured, I would probably actually go with I'd probably go with White, actually. I still think it's a better game. Thoughts on cash in upcoming game weeks? I personally think that we can just go with a cheaper Aston Villa defender. Like, I'd rather just sell cash. You've got both. Yeah, as I said, I'd rather just start White. I think you should start White and Porro. I'm really interested to know what team you have if you can actually bench Porro. Cash to Porro, Diaby to Hwang. I think those are amazing moves, Dylan. Definitely. Bench Alvarez, Watkins, or Hee-Chan. I'd probably bench Watkins. Start Colwell, Udogie. I'd probably go Udogie, actually. Should I start Lascelles over Udogie? Yes. No. I think I would actually start... I think I'd start Udogie, actually, still. Home fixture. Can be quite attacking. I think I would just do that. Because it's not like I think there's a huge gain from going for, let's say, Lascelles this week. Lascelles or Guecki, I'd still go Guecki. I'd back the home fixture there. Guecki to Gabriel, turn it to Dubravka. I would go Guecki to Gabriel. A Dingra to Hee-Chan for a -4. Ryan, I think it's very clear. I would definitely play Porro over Lascelles. I don't think Everton away is actually a good fixture, personally. You're the best. Thank you, Bishara. Livramento is an option to replace cash. I think that's fine, yeah. If you want to save some money, Livramento is definitely a good pick. Start Porro or Shar? I'd start Porro, personally. Palmer or Porro? I'd start Porro. Who do I bench? Dawson, Porro, Gordon. Probably Dawson. For sure, Everton more likely to score than West Ham. Yeah, I agree with that. Well, it's close. It's close. But I think the big thing as well is when I compare, let's say, Udogie to Lascelles, Udogie is much more attacking. Transferring Son in for Foden. I think that makes sense. It's a great move. Guehi to Colwell this week or wait next week? I would wait next week, Sekov. Start Johnson or Dubravka? I'd probably start Johnson, actually. Leicester. Thanks, Fran. Thank you. Should I buy Gord or Palmer? I'd probably go Palmer. Yeah, I know what you're saying about Udogi hasn't done anything in recent weeks, but we also have to say that that doesn't, for example, like, I mean, when you're watching Udogi play, he still gets into really good attacking positions. So I don't think it's, for example, closed off entirely that he can get attacking returns, right? He plays in a way where stylistically he'll bring you an attacking return. I think we can even, for example, compare that to Zinchenko, where obviously, you know, recently he's got a 1 goal, 1 assist, but obviously before that you could make the same argument. Will players like Alvarez and Foden be in the green in the upcoming weeks? The issue is game week 18, right? So if you're free hitting on 18, I would actually already consider Foden and Alvarez to be green. But if you're not free hitting on 18, there's a huge impact, of course, with the blank game week being there. So that's the issue. Bowen or Palmer? I would probably go Palmer, actually. Start Maguire or Lascelles? I would start Lascelles. Actually, I'd start Maguire, actually. Apparently, I don't think, sorry, Doku's not apparently out for the game. I'm going to unpin my message because that's wrong. Apparently, Doku is on the bench. So apparently, Doku is definitely not starting, but I don't know whether he's on the bench or whether he's out of the team. Manny Banny says, I don't think it's worth the -4 Adingra to Huang, because keep in mind, Huang has some risks, right? Unless you have a wildcard 19, the issue with Huang, unfortunately, is that, of course, you will have 4 players, or maybe 3 players in the Asian Cup / AFCON that you have to deal with, and then, of course, he's on 4 yellow cards. I think it's worth the punt to go Huang if you actually have a wild card in your back pocket. Should I go out and watch Arsenal at the pub tonight? Yeah, of course you should, mate. You've got 3 great Arsenal players. Go for it. Captain Son. I think he's a great differential. Probably my second best favorite captain, which is why he's my vice captain. Play Colbert or Lascelles. I would actually play Lascelles. Lascelles or Guehi? I would still go Guehi. Bench Alvarez, Watkins, or He-Chan? I'd probably bench Watkins. What do you think starts on the left for City? Yeah, probably Foden, right? Or maybe Bernardo, because Foden could sort of play central still. Why? Better clean sheet odds for Newcastle. Bench Alvarez, Watkins, or He-Chan? As I said, I would bench Watkins. Who to bench? Alvarez, Watkins, Nunez, or Tsimikas? Honestly, I think if you're scared of, let's say, benchings, I would bench Tsimikas, because for me, the attacking upside is still with Alvarez, Watkins, and Nunez, right? Because I would say Nunez and Tsimikas have very similar risks in terms of being maybe, for example, rotated. So in that instance, I would probably just take the gamble on Nunez over Tsimikas. Start Tsimikas or Taylor. I'd still start Tsimikas, though. I would take that punt over Taylor, who, look, ultimately is playing away from home. Out of context question, Messi, Ronaldo. I'm actually a Real Madrid fan, but my answer would be Messi. Who do I bring in out of Palmer, Bowen, and Diaz? Bring in? I would probably bring in Palmer, actually. I can't even guarantee that Diaz will start. Start Solanke or Palmer? I would start Solanke. Bench Lascelles for Udogi. I would play Udogi personally, but if you want to, I think it's close. So if you really want to play Lascelles, then just play Lascelles. But I would bench Lascelles. What percentage do you give Tsimikas and Nunez to start? Honestly, I would give 50% for both. I can't. I'm not a Liverpool leaker. I've seen what Liverpool leakers have said. I've seen contrasting opinions for both. I've seen actually more people think that Tsimikas will start compared to Nunez, but at the same time, you can't guarantee that. It's because I think a lot of those people were inspired by the spy on, or for example, I think the Cop leakers sort of predicted lineup, which actually had Tsimikas in and Darwin out. But a lot of people still think that Darwin will play, so it's very hard to guess. Is Palmer guaranteed 90 minutes? I think the biggest thing, Vikrant, is Gallagher is out. And because Gallagher is out, I think Palmer is guaranteed to play as the attacking number 10. So I think that Palmer is definitely guaranteed 80 minutes at least. I wouldn't say 90 though, but I think him starting, as long as he's ready to play and he doesn't have, for example, a reoccurrence of his injury, should mean that Palmer starts. I agree, and plays a good amount of minutes because their depth is very, 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 very bad. I do have a Discord, guys. You can find it in the description. Also, link in the description, my affiliate link to Fantasy Football Hub, where you can obviously check your price changes, your price rises, your live team, recommended transfers, things like that, and underlying stats. I have a Discord, of course. I also have some other links, of course, for social media in the description as well, if you want to follow me on other platforms. Future transfer plans. My future transfer plans are actually to probably get a cheaper Aston Villa defender for cash. So replace cash with a cheaper Aston Villa defender. Or if I think that, for example, James looks like he's fit and ready to go and he'll have good fixtures going forwards with good minutes, I'll just go for James next week. I think someone also said, really like how you go through almost every comment and try to answer every one of our questions. Yeah, no problem. I mean, that's what I'm here to do. I'm going to try answer every question as possible. I also like to answer the question as detailed as possible. Generally, I think a lot of questions that have been asked to me this week were, do you think you should bring in Dubravka for a hit? Personally, no. Other questions that have been asked are things like, should you play Watkins or Alvarez? I personally would pick Alvarez in that instance. Another question that has frequently been asked is Guehi or Lascelles. I would go Guehi and start Lascelles and start Guehi and bench Lascelles. Those kind of questions I would answer in that sort of way. I would also start Palmer over Gordon, if that helps people. I would start Palmer and Tsimikas. I just think that ultimately Lascelles with a pretty bad fixture away from home, you take the punt on Tsimikas in those instances. Looks like Brighton-Brentford game could be a shootout. It always is a shootout. I think there's actually multiple Brighton-Brentford games that ended 3-3. But these are two teams that, when they seem to match up with each other, always lead to multiple attacking returns, which is crazy. Is Zinchenko starting? I'm not quite sure, personally, because I do think, however, that Zinchenko's pretty like... Ooh, we have a predicted Man City lineup, guys. 3 minutes left to go. I'm going to tell you guys the lineup right now, okay? I'm going to type it out for you as well. Foden, Haaland, Silva, Alvarez, Rico Lewis, Stones, Akanji, Guardiola, Diaz, Walker, Ederson. I've just typed it out for you guys. This is apparently the predicted lineup from Luke, but I will also say that Luke has pretty much gotten the Man City lineup 11 out of 11 the last few weeks, which is incredible. So that is probably going to be your City lineup. I don't think Stones is worth the punt, guys. Remember that they always try to manage Stones' minute, right? So, for example, the issue with Man City is the Aston Villa game is pretty tough, and the fixture after that is really good in Game Week 16. But if Stones plays versus Aston Villa, he might get rested in Game Week 16, so I would not go for Stones. All right, enjoy your 2 a.m. McDonald's, Yala. Appreciate that. Cash to Walker or James next week. I think I personally like James. I don't think that's a mediocre City team, personally. I mean, the losses, I think obviously it depends on how you interpret Rico Lewis, but I think Stones is huge, right? Stones is such a big reinforcement. With Rodri out, getting Stones back in, I think, is amazing in that context. Yeah. Defensive solidity looks good. Walker, Lascelles to start. I would probably still... I would actually start Lascelles. I think Aston Villa are very, very good attack. I'm just saying, from a City point of view, okay, of course, I would say there's quite a big downgrade, considering you don't have like a true left winger, right, in terms of Doku. But I do think Stones is more than a serviceable replacement for Rodri, as long as he's fit to play. And obviously, we know this season they haven't been able to field KDB. So in the context of what the City team, technically could be, I think obviously you've lost a little bit in terms of Rodri. But Stones is, of course, a huge, for example, option to come back into. But by the way, guys, make your transfers. Start Lascelles or Palmer. I would start Palmer. I just think Lascelles is pretty low ceiling. I would probably bench Lascelles. I would take the attacking options over Lascelles. Start. Is Odegaard and Saliba good? Yeah, he definitely is good. I mean, both of those picks are definitely good. Play Hee-Chan in the next 2 weeks. Absolutely, you should play him in the next 2 weeks. Those are his 2 best fixtures. Start Guehi or Tsimikas. Deadline in 1 minute. Deadline's here. Deadline is here. Well, first of all, congratulations, you guys, to meeting the deadline. Thank you guys so much for joining the chat. And, guys, the deadline's been hit. You can't ask. The deadline's here, guys. Make your moves. Pens down, my friends. Pens down. I'm going to log off today just because, unfortunately for me, I have to go back to work. And I'm quite tired. But thank you guys so much for joining me on the live stream. I really appreciate you guys and your support. Chris Chan, well done for being 6.5k. Well done for everyone as well, just in general, for sort of tuning into these streams. Thank you guys so much and for supporting me. But yeah, appreciate it. I'll see you guys in the next deadline. Hope you guys are doing well. Hope you guys get your green arrows. If Salah flops, what's the average points going to be? Well, it depends, right? Love the content. Thank you guys so much. Pens down, pens down. Absolutely. But yeah, as I said, take care, guys. I hope your FPL weeks go well. The content will continue. I'm going to try and get as much content out as possible. We obviously have 3 games of fixtures, and after that could be very, very interesting. So yeah, take care and goodbye. See you guys next week. Villa 5-3 City. That's a little bit ambitious. I don't think City are that bad. But yeah, let's see.